my name became really synonymous with real estate to the network that I was connected with on my social media. And over time, my credibility grew, my confidence grew with what I was discussing. And I really just kind of built those relationships up to the point that people began calling me to, buy or sell real estate, or started referring me out. And that's really when I saw my business start to kind of accelerate.
What is up, beautiful people? We have the amazing Christine LaBounty here right now in the house. Christine has now become kind of a good friend of mine. We did a tour of California together. We only kind of followed each other on Instagram before that, but I've been hearing a lot about her. Marco had been talking about her. Marco's a good friend of both of ours, Marco Rivera. If you're on Instagram, by the way, guys, come on to YouTube if you actually want to hear Christine, because you're only hearing me on Instagram right now. But Christine is amazing realtor, lives in San Diego, absolutely crushes it. And yeah, I'm just so excited to have you on. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited.
100%. So just real quick, give like a background of yourself, of your career so far in real estate, entrepreneurship, all of that. Just let people, for the 0 people on here who don't know who you are, just real quick, give them like a quick bio of just like what you do and all that good stuff.
Okay, so I actually graduated college. I went into corporate America. So I had like your 8 to 5 desk job. I kind of joke, I did that for a few years. I enjoyed it, but I was burnt out and broke, which is not a good combination to be. I was in an industry that just could afford not to really pay very well, because a lot of people wanted to be in that industry. And I did marketing and PR for them. And so after a few years, I decided I deserved better, and I was going to take the leap into real estate. I had had some exposure to it growing up. My mom was a luxury agent in Los Angeles for over 2 decades. I had an aunt, 2 uncles, cousins in commercial and residential real estate. So I was very familiar with the industry, but it was just from kind of, being in their vicinity, not because I actually knew much about it beyond that. And so I took the leap, and I literally started from ground zero. I was in San Diego, a city that I did not grow up in, that I did not go to school in, and that I had 0 friends in. So I literally had to build my business from the absolute ground up. I'm talking working 365 days a year for 2 or 3 years, nonstop, grinding, doing open houses, networking events, everything I could to grow my database and build it into ultimately the business that I have today.
Wait, two questions just from that already. What, you said 2 years you had to grind?
Oh my gosh, it was the first 2.5 years. I really did not take a day off. I mean, I was working
Gotcha.
Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all day, every day.
So I have 2 questions in my mind. The first question is, why San Diego then? Like, why'd you move there? Why did that happen if you don't have any friends or don't have any connections at all?
So I had grown up in Los Angeles. I had been working in Los Angeles. I had what I consider my quarter life crisis, moved to Sydney, Australia, got a really great opportunity with my job at the time, went and did marketing and PR out there for one of their licensee companies, came back and decided I was not ready to leave Southern California, but I was done with the LA just grind. I had had enough. I grew up there and I was ready for something new. San Diego felt like the kind of more down to earth, slower paced kid sister of LA. So that sounded great. And I'd been there a couple times and I always had a good time. So it was really kind of on a map, and I just ended up there. And so I did have a corporate job there initially before I made that decision to go into real estate. So my roots, my new kind of roots, if you will, were there. And so I decided to take a chance. I loved the city. And my first 2.5 years kind of became almost a love letter to the city, in that I dedicated every spare moment I had to exploring every single corner to make sure that I knew everything about everywhere in San Diego County, so that I could become the most knowledgeable agent that I could against peers who had grown up there their whole life.
Awesome. Okay. So that was question number 1. And then question number 2, right? You were grinding for 2.5 years to become the best agent you possibly could be every single day. And then on day 2.5, and then on that day where it hit 2.5 years, what finally changed in your mind? What had been like, wait a minute, there's something wrong about this?
It wasn't that something was wrong. It's that something finally clicked and business started coming to me instead of feeling like I was constantly chasing it down and clawing after it. When I dove into real estate, because I didn't know anybody, I had to grow a network very fast, and I had to build credibility in an industry that I had no experience in, and I had to create likability and trust. And so I did that by being everywhere I could in front of as many people. And I really leveraged, social media was really the tool that I leveraged. So I added every single person on social media, and I spent every single day touring the city, doing home tours. You name it, I was doing it, and I was documenting it all on social media. So over time, my name became really synonymous with real estate to the network that I was connected with on my social media. And over time, my credibility grew, my confidence grew with what I was discussing. And I really just kind of built those relationships up to the point that people began calling me to, buy or sell real estate, or started referring me out. And that's really when I saw my business start to kind of accelerate, beyond kind of what it had been that first year or two. So that's really where the turning point truly was. But it was a lot of grinds leading up to that.
So how did it click? How does one click where it makes it where leads just come to you, right? I have experience with this as through wholesaling and social media, right? And like being in these communities up to an Astro where people just send me leads now, which is awesome. But how do you get it where, because I think your business is basically fully run off social media at this point, right? Am I wrong about that? Are you still doing any active like outreaching for leads?
I don't really do much outreach at all. My business is, I'd say, 95% referral based. Occasionally I'll get, or social media based. Occasionally I'll get, clients that stumble into a listing of mine, and and I'll end up representing them. But for the most part, yeah, it is referral based. And that's, again, that goes back to building those relationships. And I kind of identified early on who my target customer was, who was going to be the easiest group to break through. And I set kind of short and long-term goals. So the short-term goals, I saw I had a unique advantage, and I chose to see it as an advantage in that I was 28. And so I was able to connect to millennials who were either buying their first place or selling their first place, buying their second, in a way that, a 70-year-old realtor who had been in the business 50 years, just couldn't, right? They were looking at it through a different lens than I could with my fellow peer. So first-time home buyers, millennials, that is really how I built my business, as a foundation. But then I started looking long term too. I knew long term, those kinds of buyers are only going to be doing one or two deals every 3, 5, 7 years, right? Especially here in Southern California. So investors, developers, fix and flippers, referral based partners that I could have that were divorce attorneys or lenders or bankers, those were people that I had to build a business Rolodex around and harbor that relationship and eventually earn their trust and win their business. And those were going to be ultimately the people that would feed me deal after deal after deal and really take my business to a whole nother level. And that took a couple years, but that was the strategy.
So let's talk about that, because I'm really interested in that, right? Obviously, I'm an investor. My main strategy is working with realtors to get deals. And I'm constantly outreaching to realtors. Like that's what I'm doing all day. That's like what my team is doing all day, right? So I'm curious because my camera's so wonky, but like I'm curious why some realtors are like you who just get it, where they're like, wait a minute, working with investors is the best thing ever. I can do deal after deal after deal after deal over and over and over again with these guys. It's not like a normal home buyer where they're going to do it like once every 3 to 7 years, right? Why? What do you feel like? Because you probably are better friends with more realtors than I am. What do you feel like some realtors think about investors? What's wrong with their mindset? What do you feel like is that tension sometimes between investors and agents that like is there? I don't know if you see that, if you've ever seen that, but I'm like curious about it.
Yeah, I think it starts with, honestly, kind of a lack of education. As a real estate agent, the training we go through is relatively minimal, and it's relatively traditional, generic, basic, dating back, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And so agents that are entering the business really aren't taught the value of working with investors, or how to work in with investors, or what to look for, how to screen them, how to vet them to find the good ones versus, the bad seeds, or the ones that are kind of a wolf in sheep's clothing that don't really know what they're
Right.
doing, right? Much like realtors, one bad apple spoils the lot. And I think the same goes through to investors. And I think agents just don't know any better. And so agents, people in general don't like what they don't understand, right? They'll take the path of least resistance. And so if that's a direction that they just aren't educated on or intimidated by, I don't think it's something they're going to pursue. And so I think it really starts with education. It really should be at the brokerage level, but for a wholesaler or an investor who's trying to build relationships with agents, I think kind of dumbing it down and starting with the basics of like, hey, here's how we can work together, and here are the ways in which we can feed each other's business. I think that is really key. And I don't think all investors approach agents in that manner.
100%. Trust me, I teach people how to do this, and like I hear them talk to agents, and I'm like, so were you trying to make them think that you're a scammer, or like were you trying to? It's a joke, but like you have to come off with just being like super like, here's what I do here. Like I tell realtors here's where, especially like I think fix and flippers and realtors get along better than wholesalers and realtors a lot of the times, right? And I think
Yeah.
that has to do with just that we're not communicating. I think this is more the wholesaler's fault, is that they don't communicate fully like what their plans are. So like the first time I talked to a realtor, and this is true for me, so it's like it might be harder for other people, but like I do buy and hold, I do fix and flipping, and I do wholesaling. That's one of the first things that I tell them, right? And I've noticed in my life that once I tell them that, at least up front, then they're just way more receptive to working with me. And like I'll tell a realtor when I'm putting in an offer, just being like, hey, this one is like incredibly close. I just want you to know, like, I'm putting in an assignment clause because if it doesn't work for me, I might end up wholesaling this. I just want you to know that. And then I explain it to them. They know what's going on. They're not going crazy thinking like, who the hell is this? What, like they see like an email blast from like one of their investor friends, right? My question about this is like, to me, that seems to be the problem. I think the biggest problem, I don't think agents necessarily don't want to work with wholesalers. I think agents just want to know who the hell you are and like what you're planning on doing and like what your experience is and all of that
Mhm.
stuff, right? I'm curious if you agree with me, if there's more things that wholesalers can do, maybe other things that realtors can do to bridge this gap, because I think it's a sad that there's a gap there. I think a lot of wholesalers and a lot of realtors could be making a lot more money together. So I'm curious your opinion on it, all of that.
I agree. There's definitely a communication breakdown. I think here's a perfect example actually. So I had a listing earlier this fall that basically it was a trust sale, and the seller, I gave them the option of, we have one of three options. We can sell it as is to an investor. You're going to get a lower price, but it'll be fast, easy, and you don't have to worry about it. We can do a little bit of work, and we can let fall somewhere kind of in the middle. It's going to take a little longer, and we still run the risk of what happens when we really start peeling back the layers and doing inspections on a house we don't know anything about. Or, we can do a full renovation gut ourselves, and I can show you how to do that and walk you through that and bring on contractors, blah, blah, blah. They ultimately ended up wanting to just sell it as is. So I reached out to a handful of investors, some wholesalers that I knew from a group. I posted it in what I thought was a kind of private, trustworthy group. And next thing I know, the property's on Investor Lift and it's being shopped around and people are trying to daisy chain it. And I
And
was
it's
kind of
not
sitting there.
even under contract yet. Nobody has a
It
contract,
was my listing. It was my
but nobody
listing,
has
but
a purchase contract.
no
Yeah.
purchase.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
that's
so it
illegal. But
just, I had all these people kind of calling me. And I mean, it was a whole bunch of nonsense. And I was kind of sitting there like, okay, I could have done this myself. I know the game, and I want to work with somebody that is experienced, that knows what they're doing, that knows what they're talking about, and that is communicating with me more than anything, right? And so I think that's a great example of a frustration that I immediately had of, okay, and there were certain wholesalers that I knew what they were doing, and so I immediately made a note of it. And those are wholesalers that I'm not going to work with, because I feel like I can't trust you to bring I brought an opportunity to you, and instead of you being honest with me about what your intentions were with that, you went behind my back and started shopping it left and right, and that was just not something I was interested in doing in this situation to protect my clients, right? And that's an agent, because this is such a relationship business for us. We have to make sure that we're looking good and we're acting in the best interest of our clients, and sometimes that gets lost when we feel like wholesalers are going behind our back and not communicating with us their true intentions with the property, their true experience, all of that. And a skilled agent can pick up on that very quickly. And all you're going to end up doing is kind of biting the hand that feeds you. So, I think those examples are kind of what spoil the lot for some realtors, when they're working.
100%. So for the audience, because here's what I'm going to play devil's advocate to, like what a lot of wholesalers think. And I completely disagree with this, but this is what wholesalers think. Wholesalers think, okay, but would I ever even get a shot at it unless I told you that I'm a real estate investor, I'm buying it? Like, would you even give me a chance to wholesale it with a purchase contract? And what I really want to know the answer to, Christine, is like, in that scenario, let's say I'm a wholesaler. Would there be a way that they go to you and you'd let them wholesale it? Would they, like, how would you want a wholesaler to work with you potentially in the future on any situation that's off market where you guys can actually make something happen? Like, how would you actually want the conversation to go where you'd be really happy with that?
Yeah, I think if somebody that I wasn't familiar with and I hadn't worked with or communicated with, I think if you came to me, you introduced yourself, and you had everything together. Hey, this is who I am. This is a little bit about my background. If you're not, super experienced, then maybe that's an opportunity to kind of partner with somebody who is a little more experienced, right? But just to be totally transparent, here's what we're thinking. Here are our ideas for it. Here's how we can show you where we can bring value to you. Here are the benefits that would be to working with us. We're looking for a long-term relationship. So this isn't just one deal, a one deal wonder for us. We want to actually continue to do deals. You can tell people that have thought this out and are organized and know what they're talking about, to some degree, right? Versus the people that are throwing spaghetti up on the wall trying to get something to stick. And I think that goes a long way. Just the organization, the communication, and the full transparency. That would absolutely make me pause. And if it wasn't the right deal that I felt that was appropriate for, even them just coming to me saying that, I would absolutely sit down and be like, okay, if we can't make this deal work, I want to know more about you and your business and how we can possibly work together in the future. And I would absolutely, take a call, take a Zoom, get to know them, and consider adding them to my short list of go-to wholesalers.
I love it. I like that. I like that a lot as an idea. I think what I would do, for instance, with somebody like you, Christine, especially, like pretending that we didn't know each other really well already and you didn't know my credibility. It's really easy now for me because I could just be like, look at all my YouTube content. Like, just look at me doing deals, right? Once you do social media, guys, this conversation's so easy. Go to my Instagram, see all the stuff I'm doing. And then it's like, okay, now I got instant credibility. But basically, like for instance, like if I didn't have the Instagram and I didn't have like what I'd been doing, a lot of times what I would do, for instance, for that situation, I'd be like, hey, so I want you to know, like, my price for fix and flipping this would be incredibly low. I think lower than what the seller would want. I think it's possible for me to assign this one at the price they want, or maybe really close. I think it's highly likely that I would be able to do that. Are you okay with me doing that? Because right now, fix and flip numbers, I'm going to be way lower. That's an option we can go down. But I really think there are going to be buyers. I have a list of over blah, 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 400, 500. I can send it to them. And then I get Christine's response, right? Sometimes the realtor is like, no, I've got it, whatever, right? It's like, okay, just is what it is. And sometimes sometimes a lot of times the realtor is like, okay, let's look at that, right? So yeah, I think that's how I would go about it,
Yeah.
probably.
And
Um,
I think, and you and I both know this just from, being in sub two with Peace Morby and everything, but I really think the importance is leading with value and starting the conversation with, hey, Christine, here's how I think I could bring value to you and your seller. You're telling me that your seller wants, 600K for this house or whatever it is, right? Here's how I think I could get that for them. But I also want to be honest. If I were to write the offer myself, I think I could only realistically go up to 550. I know that's not really what your seller's wanting. So here's how I think I could get to 600, and that shows me that you're thinking about my client and me before you're thinking about you. And that is a really good way to build trust with people. I was getting ready to do an Instagram post on it because, like yourself, I'm fairly active on Instagram, and I've been having a lot of agents reach out to me lately from other markets across the country. And a lot of them are sliding into my DM saying, hey, Christine, I'm in the XYZ market. Do you have any clients that are moving to XYZ? If not, go ahead and put me down as your referral partner and send them my way, if and when you do. And
hmm.
and I read these messages sometimes and I'm thinking, okay, there's nothing about you wanting to get to know me or anything about my business. There's nothing you're really offering me in return. You're not even really mentioning about, hey, occasionally I have people that are heading to Southern California, da da da. I'd love to refer you business as well. Or, hey, is there a way we could collaborate? Da da da, do something creative. It's just me, 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 me. And those are the kind of people that in my head, I'm thinking, okay, you're not trying to get to know me. You're not bringing any value to me. You just want me to bring value to you. And that is not a good lead in with an introduction. And I think the same rings true, right, for wholesalers. Is think about it from the real estate agent's perspective. What do we care about the most? We care about doing a good job for our clients, looking good for our clients, and ultimately getting more referrals from our clients. So if you can make me look good and get my clients what they're looking for or super close to it, I'm going to pause and give you a chance to, have a conversation with me.
Yeah, 100%. The only time I don't do any of that is if like the price is so low that I'm like, nah, just give me that. Like I just want that right now, right? And then I worry about everything else later.
Yeah.
That happens every once in a while.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, it's only when it says like that's such an obvious one. But yeah, guys, like Luke watches a lot of my stuff, and literally I say it every single time. Realtors literally don't care. I've talked to thousands of agents at this point in my career. And I've maybe had 5 who were like, yeah, I don't want to work with you at all. You mentioned wholesaling. It's very, very rare because I'm coming off professionally. I don't know, Christine, probably you haven't heard that much of what I call the Scorch method, but I go in and I'm immediately on an intro like, hey, my name is Jonah, real estate investor in this area. What I do better than anybody else is I solve sellers' problems. So if you ever are dealing with foreclosure, no equity, whatever it is, I promise I'll have a solution no matter what. And I'm going to solve that problem and get you your commission, right? And when you come out with like that, where like I'm leading with value, then the realtor's much more interested. They don't care if necessarily you're mainly wholesaling or mainly fix and flipping. They just want to know that you're sticking to your word, that you're being honest, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, this is great. I really like this conversation because I find it sad that like realtors and wholesalers don't like just constantly mesh together. And I think it's mostly our fault, to be honest. I think it's not as much the realtor's fault. I think it's mostly wholesalers being insecure about how to get deals because maybe they're newer, they don't feel like they know anybody, they don't know what to do, right? And that's just what I see, right? And it's sad to see because like you said, it runs the whole bunch. It's the same with realtors with clients. If like a realtor screws you over, you might think that all realtors are like that, right? And that's just human nature and like what we have to deal with. So
Well, and
anywho, that was
I thought
good.
that was a great intro too. I thought that script is fantastic because that's what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to solve sellers' problems, and there are a lot of agents that come across or target, those exact scenarios. And so having someone like you in their back pocket is is ideal, right? I mean, that's just another solution in our toolkit. And that's why I love working with investors and fix and flippers and wholesalers, because just like that listing that I told you about from the fall, I had 3 options to present to my seller and I let them make the call, right? But I knew exactly who I was going to need to kind of funnel this property to based off the decision they were making. And I was able to offer them those opportunities and ultimately the decision they went with, because I had wholesalers and fix and flippers and investors like yourself in my back pocket that I knew could deliver. And so it makes me look like a champion in my seller's eyes. And so if you're painting it exactly how an agent wants to see and hear it, right? And so I think that that's super important, is making sure the wholesaler, if they're reaching out to agents, put yourself in the agent's position. What do they want to hear? What pain points are they having with their clients? And how can you be the solution? And if you lead with that, I promise you 9 out of 10 agents are going to take your call and give you the time of day to kind of hear you out.
I love it. So Christine, because I'm curious, because I hear this a lot, I'm gonna pretend I'm the wholesalers in this bunch right now. I like this conversation a lot. So how do you get the constant texts and the constant calls from investors? Are you like on the list? I'm like kind of curious. So what
Yes.
do you do with those? Because a lot of agents in my pipeline, right? Like I initially have to like really show them that I'm like a real human being before they start responding to me. What do you do with those texts? How do you filter them? Do you respond to any of them? I'm just kind of curious your process.
I get so many that no, I don't really respond to them much
That's fine.
anymore, unless it's like, unless they're hitting me at very irrelevant, or unless there's something in their message that stands out. But for the most part, I catalog them in both my phone, and then I get a lot of emails as well. And so I literally have a folder of like wholesalers, fix and flippers, or whatnot that have reached out. And then when I do get a property that is exactly what I know they're looking for, then I kind of start going back through those messages. But I will say I make the calls and I prioritize those that I have either worked with in the past or had real conversations with. And those are the conversations I have first before I just kind of open it up to anybody that happened to send me a text, right? Because then I don't really know who's on the other line. And there are certain situations and certain sellers that I cannot afford to, have it turn into kind of a free for all. So it
Chaos.
goes a long way to, to be a face, to have had a conversation, and to show that realtor that you're taking your business seriously. And again, you're not just mass texting every agent in your county, again, to just kind of see what spaghetti ends up on the wall.
Yeah. I have never done a deal with an agent without talking to them at some point. It's physically impossible, right? Almost all of the deals, maybe 1 or 2 I've ever done was from the initial text message. Almost all of them I first have to get on an intro call with, right? And you would probably ignore my first message, and then my second and third one, you'd probably be like, wait, what's happening here? This guy actually might be legit, right? But
People
it's
don't
hard.
send follow-up messages. And
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll go back through and look, okay, has this person sent me like multiple? Are they consistent at least? Even if I haven't gone on a phone call with them, are they consistently sending me messages, or are they like one and done? And you'd be surprised, you'd be horrified at the number of like one and dones that I have just sitting in my phone. And those are the ones that I usually end up ultimately trashing, because they aren't people that ever reached out. They sent me one text and they think that they have their bases covered. And that to me just isn't somebody I want to work with.
I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Like you have to be following up constantly. I mean, the only way, Christine, you can tell me if I'm wrong. This is what I've noticed, and this might not be true for you. I don't know if it's true for every realtor. The only way I beat out, like if I just, let's say Christine and I have had one conversation, right? Let's say we had a great conversation, sure. But she has what, 20 investors she trusts and knows and loves, and she just had one conversation with me. Usually, the only way I beat out any of those people is that I text her right when she gets something. Usually, if I text Christine or an agent right when she gets something, I call her immediately and be like, give me the situation. And then you give me the whole situation. I'm like, great. All right, I'm going to calculate the numbers. So it's like, okay, here's where I'm at. Let's make it happen, right? That's the only way I beat them, because I've almost kind of just made it so easy for Christine, where it's like, okay, well, I mean, he's right here making it happen right now. I don't know how you feel about that. I think that's the only way that I think of like someone like me would beat someone you already have a relationship with is like if you just happen to get it right at the right time and you're just on it, while the other person, you didn't even have a chance to text, or like it's just, or whatever, right? Like, what do you think of that? Do you agree with me or disagree?
Yeah, I agree, but I'm a relationships person. So if someone is proactively trying to build a relationship with me, that goes a long way in my book, and I remember that. I actually had a community member, I don't even remember how he got in touch with me or why, but somehow our paths crossed, and he got on the phone with me and he was asking, is there anything I can do for you and your business outside of just your traditional real estate business? We got to talking, and he discovered that I was actually looking for a certain type of property in a certain type of area. And he's like, okay, I'm going to put out feelers. I occasionally come across this, We got off the phone. That was it. Literally, I want to say like 3 or 4 weeks later, I get a call from him and he's like, hey, I think I found you exactly what you're looking for. I remember you told me you were looking for this. I was an Airbnb property that I was kind of looking for in a certain location. And he sure enough brought me this deal. He brought me these investors that had multiple ones they were trying to unload. And this is just something that he had been working on for 3 or 4 weeks. And after that, I now bumped him to the top of my list because this was somebody that took the time to get to know me, what was going to be of value to me, something that wasn't even really related to what we had started talking about to begin with. And then he went so far as to actually bring me what he knew I was looking for. And I was so impressed by it that I told him, I'm like, I will give you, first dibs on any properties that are relevant to you and your business, because you showed me that you cared enough and you listened to something that was personal that I was looking for. And that really went a long way. And he was much more junior. He wasn't as experienced as some of the other investors that I work with. And so I've been trying to really help him out. I've been making introductions because I just really appreciated that effort. And so there are ways, think about it again as building a relationship, especially with agents that are doing a lot of these types of deals. Think about it in the long term. These are not quick, fast relationships. You might get rejected a few times. Agents are lazy. We get all these calls all the time. And so sometimes it's not even personal. We're just like, hey, like you've caught me at a bad time. Like I can't talk, right? But stay persistent and eventually you will break through and you will forge those valuable relationships. And it only takes a handful of those valuable relationships to see your business skyrocket.
It's literally like I got 4 where I'm that guy for some agents in the Bay Area, and it's just that's all you need. I'll probably make $20,000 a year, basically passively for the rest of my life because I'm that guy, right? If you have 10 of those, right? And honestly, I kind of learned this later of like how valuable those relationships are, right? They will carry you through everything, basically, if you can make those. So we're ending this podcast. We're starting to get to the end of the podcast. I always end this podcast with one question that I really like knowing. So, Christine, if you could go back to when you were just starting off as a real estate agent, like maybe the first day you're like, okay, we're doing it. What would you tell Christine then, knowing everything that you know now?
I would have gone all in on social media, on Instagram and YouTube specifically, much sooner. I think
Explain that.
those are the 2 places where I feel like I'm able to monetize the most and where I've gotten the most business. And absolutely, I would have gone all in absolutely on those 2.
Okay. I like that a lot. So that you just would have started the social media earlier.
Yeah,
Even
and
if
I
you
would have
didn't
been more
have done a
intentional. I'm sorry?
most people who watch think this is like, but I haven't done a deal yet. How am I going to even make social media content? What am I going to
Oh
talk
my
about,
gosh,
Christine?
wholesalers. I mean, if you're a wholesaler, you should be creating like a YouTube page, and you can repurpose content, right? But you should be creating a YouTube page, and create videos explaining what it is wholesalers do, educate people on who wholesalers are, how do wholesalers and real estate agents work together. Start thinking about, if you want agents to be ultimately your clientele, create videos that explain to agents, here's how I can bring you value. Here are the different ways we can work together. Here's, how we handle this type of seller. Here's what we do with this type of seller. I mean, you could create so much content, leverage chat GPT. There's so much AI tools and availability now that you can plug in and you can get content ideas. You can go to Ask the Public and other sites like that and type in and find out what do people want to know about a particular topic, right? You can go to the YouTube search window and type in wholesaling and see everything that comes up below it, right? Wholesaling for realtors, wholesaling with realtors, wholesaling this, wholesaling that, and you can see what people are searching for. Those are the things to be creating content around, and you can repurpose your content and put it into all of your different social media avenues, start connecting with people and grow that way. And that way you can start building credibility, and you script those out. I mean, you practice those, do it intentionally. Don't just start shooting random videos, right? But take the time to research exactly what the topic is, know that it's being searched, script it out, practice it, and then create a video where you are sounding confident and self-assured, and create pages based off that. And I promise you, your credibility, your audience, it will grow. And eventually you'll start having conversations with agents, and you can say, hey, reference my YouTube page. I actually create a lot of videos that would be super helpful for this conversation. Hey, why don't I drop you an email with some of my YouTube videos explaining how you can work together? Why don't I send this to you, and then can we schedule a follow-up call after you watch some of these? I mean, there's so many ways that you can monetize that and help build credibility, even if you are a new wholesaler.
It's something that I'm screwing up. My YouTube sucks compared to my Instagram, and I really need to be creating those videos. I have come off so many times where I'm like, why am I sending Pace's video about what is sub 2? I need to create a goddamn video about what is sub 2 and just break it down on a freaking whiteboard and just send them that, instead of having it be Pace, because that's just growing Pace's credibility and not my own, right? So that's just a reminder I need to be doing that. And also something that you could 100% do. I've seen Nathan do this. Nathan Harris, you probably don't know him, but Nathan Harris is an Astro student. What he does really well is he'll just be like, honestly, look, I don't know how to edit anything. I don't know how to do the scripting or whatever. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go live on everything, and you're going to watch me call and make mistakes and stuff like that. And I think that's also a great video thing to do, because you can just go live and just do what you're doing anyways. And then also you're growing your audience at the same time, because they're tuning in being like, okay, let's see how Nathan does it, how Jonah does it, or how Christine does it, right? So these are some really great ideas, and I really love it. Christine, where can people reach out to you? Where can they send you deals? What else can they do for you? All that good stuff.
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram, Christine LaBounty _real estate. I just started going deeper into my YouTube page. So I'm starting to upload content, but I'm having to take all of this advice myself. My email is christine@christinelebounty.com. Pretty easy. So if you want to shoot me an email, you're welcome to. I'm happy to connect, offer any insights I can, or connect you with somebody that can. And yeah, I love connecting with new people.
Which is the best way to reach out to you?
Probably my Instagram is the best way to communicate with me.
I did it right?
Yep, that's it. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Christine, you're amazing. You're awesome. You are a great Scorch the Fears guest. I'm going to have you on again, though, where we actually get into fears and what I usually talk about, too. But I really like that conversation. I haven't had that conversation publicly with a realtor, so I really like that. And yeah, do you have any last words before I wrap this up?
I don't think so. I think just get out there, get out of your comfort zone, be okay being rejected. It's going to happen. It happens to me all the time still in this business. So, like Jonah says, scorch the fears and get out there and just make it happen.
Let's do it. So guys, next week, Cash Flow and Coffee is going to be at 8:15 a.m. MST. So if you guys are interested in getting your questions answered, like I usually do every Monday, it's going to be earlier. We're starting it an hour earlier than usual. That's going to be the schedule for it. I know Luke's going to have to change his calendar for that. I appreciate you, Luke. That's the main newest update. Look at that. People are following you right now. But yeah, so there's that. I completely forgot who I have on next week, but I bet it's going to be somebody cool. Christine, you're amazing. I'm going to wrap this up. Scorch the Fears, episode 111. Let's freaking go.